I'm Merk, and this is my channel, Getter. Can Boeing take off in 2023, or is there more turbulence ahead? In this video, we're going to revisit Boeing with the ticker symbol BA. Even though Boeing and Airbus are the only two in this oligopoly who make airlines for the entire world, Boeing has seen a lot of tough times in the last couple of years, between two tragic plane crashes and the pandemic devastating this company's fundamentals. However, since the pandemic bottom and over the last couple of years, it looks like Boeing's finally got its act together, and we might be heading into what's called an airline supercycle. All of the airline companies need to replace their planes every so many years, so we get into these super cycles that last as long as 8 years, where these airlines have to replace every single plane in their fleet. If we are headed into one of those super cycles now, we could be seeing a lot of potential upside in Boeing, maybe starting as soon as 2023. So in this video, we're going to take a look at Boeing's price action since my last video update. I'll give you a buying plan of what I would do if I didn't currently hold shares in the position, and then we'll go over my own position and the moves that I've made since the last video update. My last video update was on February 6th of 2022, and Boeing was looking pretty good with a per share cost of $206.45. It actually popped shortly after the video, but only briefly, because that's when Russia invaded Ukraine and we started to get really bad inflation data. And none of this is good for the economy or airlines that have to buy these extremely expensive planes. Boeing ended up bottoming down here in June, right around $113, and then ended up bouncing, reaching a high only recently here at $196.40. That's a pretty incredible gain of 73.77% from its bottom. So if I was going to start investing in Boeing, I wouldn't do what I normally do by buying half of my position in a bull market and then saving the remaining 50% to buy at lower levels. Instead, I'd start with a 25% buy in Boeing and then save that 75% in cash to buy in 10% increments at stages on its way down. Boeing bottomed down here at $113.02. So what I would do to find levels of support is to draw a Fibonacci retracement from that low to its recent high. And this gives us levels where we might be able to open a position and add to the position over time. As you can see, this Fibonacci retracement at 23.6%, $176.72, has actually provided a lot of support in the past. And what I'd probably do is use the low of this day here as my first buy at $178.55. From here, you can see that the next Fibonacci retracement is down here at $164.55. But you can see that we've got a low of this day here at $168.52. And when you go in the past, you can see that this is pretty much providing consistent support. I'd actually raise it to the low of this day at $169.06. After this buy, we go down to the 50% retracement at $154.71, and you can see that Boeing regularly hits this almost on the dot. And since I'm a little more aggressive, I'd probably use the low of this day at $155.54 as my next buy. After this, we go to the 61.8% retracement at $144.87. And if we go way back in the past, you can see that this day here had a capitulation point slightly above that at $146, my next buy. Jumping below that, you can see that we've got a pattern forming with this low of this day here at $132.21. But if you go back in the past, you can see that it found support above that low. So once again, being more aggressive, I'd raise my next buy target up here to $132.65. After this point, you can see that we have no retracement lines, but we do have a low on this day here at $124.17, followed by the low of 2022 at $113.02. At this point, we would have an 85% allocation in Boeing, but I'd still save that 15% cash to buy at lower levels because we did see those lower levels during the pandemic in March of 2020. Going back to that point, you can see that we have very key pivotal pull downs during these days, and what I would use is the $89 mark as my low, but I would find support above it on this day at $101.25. So that would be my last 10% buy, saving that 5% on the sidelines just in case we saw it hit $89 again. And this would give me a full allocation in Boeing, even though in all likelihood, Boeing probably won't break through its 2022 low at $113. And if Boeing never got that low, I wouldn't put the cash to work at a higher cost basis. Instead, I'd save the cash on the sidelines and use it for a different position sometime in the future. and not raise my cost basis in Boeing. From here, let's take a look at my own position and where it's come from since the last video update in February. As of the last update, I had a per share cost of negative $192.80 per share. For me, a negative per share cost indicates that I've pulled all of my original capital out of the investment, in addition to $192.80 per share that I still hold in the position. In fact, even though I got into Boeing in 2011 along with a number of my other positions in my investments in play portfolio, Boeing is the most profitable position of any position in the portfolio, even after its epic sell-off from a high in the 440s down to $89. The reason for this is that my discipline dictates that I regularly take profits. I have an allocation size for my portfolio, and when one of my positions exceeds that allocation size, I have to take profits to reduce it down to that maximum target. It doesn't matter if my conviction says that I believe that stock's going to go up in value. I have to take profits when I have them. I have a rule: take profits when you have them, because if you don't, the market will likely take those profits from you. Because I've owned Boeing for so long, I have the luxury of being able to add to the position without ever having to worry about putting capital back in. I'm only using profits in Boeing, and I have pulled significant profits out of this position. Throughout 2022, I did add back to my Boeing position at several points so that I could have more of an allocation to it as it sold off and became a smaller part of the portfolio. I made 3 separate buys throughout 2022, with my first on March 7th at $172.66. When Boeing continued to pull back, I made my next buy on April 27th, down here at $153.55. Since Boeing has regularly found support around the $120 mark in the more than 10 years that I've held this position, I used that mark a lot as ways for me to add back into the position. This gave me my last buy on May 20th at $117.90. The combination of these 3 buys raised my per share cost up a pretty substantial $44.45 per share to a negative $148.35. However, you have to remember that as I add more shares to the position, it divides the profit by more shares. So even though that sounds like I raised my per share cost up a lot, there's a huge amount of profit that's been taken out of this position. And from here, it was time to let Boeing run. Even though Boeing was rallying strong, and it looked like the long-term story for Boeing was starting to take off, pun intended, I did end up taking profits on November 4th when it started to approach its 200-day moving average. As we headed into November, it was hard to know which way the market was going to go. So I always err on the side of being a little bit conservative, and I made a sale at $158.60. This sale locked in 34.52% in profits on the shares that I bought on May 20th and ended up lowering my per share cost by $13.95 to $162.30. And from here, Boeing continued to rally. Since the original recording of this video, I actually did make another sale on January 3rd, 2023 at $196.86, which gives me a per share cost of negative $179.40. From here, my next buy target is at $122.05, just above Boeing's low from October of 2022. And my next sell target is $233.70, just below a key point of resistance. If you liked this video, please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.